We seem to have lost that line with Manisha, but as we pointed out, good news coming in. Good news coming in there for the MCX, and that was something that was anticipated. There was buzz in the market today on the possibility of this going through. So it's been a big ticket cabinet meeting. Of course, the GST constitutional amendment have been now cleared, and now we need to wait to see whether the government intends to bring the bill to Parliament or not. Whether it's this week or next week is the question. Remember, as we've been pointing out, the Congress continues to be non-committal. You've heard from the likes of the AIA-DMK. They believe that there ought to be consensus on some more issues there. But it certainly looks like the government is trying to push the bill. Whether it happens or not is a separate story. But constitutional bill clearance from the cabinet coming in just a short while ago as far as those crucial changes are concerned. Time for us to take a quick break, but when we return we will continue to track this. Rajeev Dimri of BMR joins us. Rajeev, thanks very much for joining us. Well, this is the news that we're just getting in at this point in time. So the 1% goes, the compensation clause, the wording has now been changed to ensure that the compensation is guaranteed to state governments. Dispute resolution by way of the GST Council. What do you make of the changes?
Well, the couple of changes, this 1% was more or less a foregone conclusion, and I think that's more a formality. But this compensation assurance, because the language in the original draft was somewhat not as strong as the states would have liked. And that gives them a better assurance, because now there is a constitutional provision for compensation. And that puts them at ease about some of the misgivings that they had. So I think, while these are smaller changes, but I think these are great steps in the direction about consensus building across states. No material change in what the expectations of the industry was, but still a great move forward.
Do you believe, Rajeev, that this now sets the stage for the passage in this session? And I also very quickly want to get your comments on the conversation that I just had with the Finance Minister of Kerala, where he seems to suggest that most state governments, or the finance ministers of most state governments in that meeting yesterday, are not in agreement with the Arvind Subramaniam panel's recommendations on the revenue neutral rate, and they have arrived at a different set of principles, not at a rate yet, but a different set of principles that could guide the possible revenue neutral rate. How would you read that?
Well, it's two ways to look at it. This 18% may not cut for all states, and I think that's the possibility. One size doesn't fit all, for sure. However, if the states have an assurance of 5 years for a compensation, my question is, why are states so concerned about revenue loss? I think it is, in everybody's interest, as well as industry's interest, where the introduction of GST happens at rates that are far more palatable. And if the states are not, denied of any loss, it may be a good thing forward. So while I agree in principle that one size may not fit all, but in the larger scheme, I wonder why states should have a major objection to that.
Even as far as the dispute resolution is concerned, we understand now that it will, of course, be the GST Council. Rajeev, do you see that satisfying most states? Because this was an area of concern as well.
Well, if it's not the GST Council, then there can't be any other body. The fact is that, where there are two sides of a transaction, the disputes across states are quite natural to arise. That possibility cannot be ruled out. And if it's not GST Council, then it will have to be some interstate tribunal. There is no other possible mechanism. So if the GST Council has to be given some real substantive powers, I think dispute resolution is one of the things that the industry would want and the states would want. To my mind, there is no other real alternative to this.
Rajeev, by way of clarifications now, what is it that you would like to see from the government? Because there have been concerns raised, for instance, on tax credits, and what kind of further clarifications would you like to see from the government?
I think there are, because of the way the draft law is, while it is a great move forward because industry has something real and tangible to, analyze, the interaction between the government and the industry should begin. While some bit of that has happened, but a larger communication program, this credit system where my credits are dependent on somebody else's compliance is a major point that the industry is raising. because, if somebody else doesn't do their compliance, why should my credits be denied, is a point of principle that is emerging. And I think that is something which is more a matter of draft law rather than anything to do with the Constitution or the framework of the GST. That's more the nitty-gritty.
I also, as I said, Amit Mitra yesterday seemed to suggest that there was a new guiding principle or a set of principles that would be used to arrive at a revenue neutral rate. And we are now given to understand that the government is likely to discuss a new formulation on the revenue neutral rate with the opposition. What do you believe this could lead to, Rajeev?
I mean, so the revenue neutrality, I think, continues to be an issue because states not all states have the right data to be able to assess what would the revenue be if they were to apply 18% or, merit rate and demerit rate, because even where we talk of demerit rate of 40% for certain products, only few states will get that money. Not everybody will get that money. Some states will lose out on CST. So I think some of the concerns are genuine. At the same time, what we can't have is multiple rates floating around across states, because that will defeat the very purpose or one of the big reasons why GST is being introduced, to remove these rate arbitrage. So it is certainly a delicate balance. To my mind, if the states are happy with the way the Constitution provisions are now being written about the compensation, I think that should be their biggest insurance policy. I mean, where else will they go? Otherwise, if everybody plays safe and bumps up the rate, we may go back to high rates and we may go back to rate arbitrages, which is not in anybody's interest.
Oh, absolutely right on that front. Now the question is whether they are going to be able to muster the numbers to try and see whether this goes through in this session itself. Rajeev, we will keep coming back to you, but for now, thanks very much for joining us. Let me go back across to my colleague Manisha Gupta. Manisha, just for the benefit of our viewers, let me recap what is the other announcement that's come in from the Cabinet. It's given its approval to raise